Hey, what's up, folks? I want to thank everybody for coming back to the channel for today's video. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. And if you're still getting out there to fish, I hope you're catching some, putting some in the boat or your kayak or whatever you may be fishing out of. Also, if you're a hunter, which I'm not, you're obviously out in the woods and you're getting spend time out there doing that. So today I want to go over my December confidence baits and techniques. I want to thank everyone, first of all, for all the questions, comments, and likes on my other videos. And also, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, I would ask that you would consider doing so. And that way you get notified anytime I come up with any new video or any new content. And that would be much appreciated, continuing to help the channel grow. You can probably see Mudbug behind me over here. I'm actually in the house today because I've been working on some stuff in the house. So I decided to do the video in here. Plus it's pretty cold out today. So talking about fishing in the month of December and talking about cold weather, I start leaning on basically four things. First of all, I'm going to go over bait. I probably talk about the least amount because it's not a bait that I throw a lot, but this time of the year I start throwing it into January, February, and even early March. And I probably should start fishing it more often than I do. But December is usually a month I start to depend on it, and that is a jerkbait. I basically only use two brands. I know there's lots of good jerk baits out there. I know all you guys like, the Mega Bass is popular. I know for years Lucky Craft has made some good jerk baits. I only throw two, and in the times that I've leaned on jerk baits and fished them, these two have always seemed to work for me. The first one is the Suspending Rogue. I think this color is actually called Lady, but the Suspending Rogue has always worked for me. It only dives down to about 4 foot, and it's always been a good producer as far as a suspending jerkbait goes. The other one I like to use is the Sense Provoke jerkbait, and this is the 106X. These are just shad colors is what I throw. These are probably the two colors I've had the most luck with. That's the typical shad color. And believe it or not, this French bone pearl is what they call it. Has been another color that's worked well for me. I'll put links in the description box for all these baits for Tackle Warehouse. And so if you decide you want to order some or just check them out, you'll be able to do that. At least all the baits that are listed on Tackle Warehouse, because some of this stuff probably isn't. But a jerkbait is something I do start to use more in December. I'm not an expert with a jerkbait. I don't consider myself to be as good a jerkbait fisherman as I am a crankbait fisherman. But in December, January, February, and early March, I have caught some fish and at times some decent size on the jerkbait. Next is a jig. 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce jig. This is just a little green pumpkin jig with a Japanese bluegill black label plastics trailer on it. And this is just a black and blue jig with I think that's called Alabama Craw Swirl or something like that. I'll make sure I get the color right when I put it in the description box. Some of these colors, I have a hard time remembering the names. To me, that just looks like an orange crawl, but they call it something else. But this has been a really good trailer for me on the back of a jig. It's easy to skip, and it's got a little action to it, but not too much action. And as the water gets colder, you want less. You don't want something where it's got legs that are just like going crazy on the back, because when the water gets colder, stuff starts to move a lot less. And even when it's coming through the water column, it's not something you want a lot of kicking action with. And believe it or not, this is, you can even leave those connected together if you want. I usually take them apart, but they come connected, so you can just let it fall just like that. But this green pumpkin with that Japanese bluegill trailer and this black and blue with that orange and brown craw colored trailer have been real good colors for me in December. Next is a good old faithful slider head. I just did a video not too long ago on this, so I'm not gonna harp on it but so much. I usually use an 1/8 to 3/16 ounce. It depends on the wind and how good a feel I think I can get. That's the Pro Slider Head. It's actually called, it's a weird name, the Charlie Brewer Pro Spider Slider Head it's called. 1/8 ounce or 3/16 ounce, and these are the baits I put on it, and in this order. I always start out with this Bitters Baits. This is Bitters Bug, it's called. This was in my last video. Then I go to the Bass Pro Shops Junior River Bug, it's called. And then I go to the Centipede. If I feel like there's still a little bit of bait fish feed going on, where they're still feeding on bait fish some, or if I can't get strikes with those two, I just go with this, rig sideways on the slider head, and it's got a real good falling action to it. So for the month of December, so far we got the jerk baits, got a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce jig, and the slider head in either 1/8 or 3/16 ounce with one of those 3 pieces of plastic on it. Now, you know what's coming next, because I love cranking, and that's a flat side. By this time, once that water temperature gets, I'm gonna say 55 or below, just about everything I throw in a crankbait is gonna be a flat side. People go by water temperature to determine how wide of a wobble or tight of a wiggle they want on their crankbait. I'm just telling you what I've experienced and what's worked for me. One that has been really, really good to me over the years, and I don't talk about it a lot, but I do still throw it because flat sides to me are something that I love to experiment with. I've tried several different brands. Everyone's coming out with them now. Used to, the little flat side balsa was the way to go. People have since found ways to use plastic, hard plastic, to make flat side crankbaits that'll catch fish. But I still love the old balsa type, and I throw some of the plastic ones too. But this one right here is one I've thrown for a while, and that's the PH Custom Lures Skinny P. This color is called Money. It's just a shad color. Skinny P has caught me a lot of fish over the years, especially in the real colder months. Like I said, 55 degrees and less, I'm almost always throwing a flat side. Another one is also made by PH Custom Lures, but it's called the Wesley Strader WS1. And this is just a little flat side that they sell. You can tell it's not as flat as the Skinny P is, but still a good crankbait, and I've caught a lot of fish with this thing as well. Most of these baits dive anywhere from 3 to 6 foot on 12-pound line. There's a couple that dive a little bit deeper, and when I mention those, I'll point that out to you. But the Skinny P and the Wesley Strader WS1 are both made by PH Custom Lures. Next is the Little John, Spro Little John. That's the regular Little John. That's been an awesome bait over the years. And this is the Little John MD. And this one actually dives down to about between 7 and 9 foot. Now on 12-pound line, maybe I'd say 6 to 8, but it listed as a 7 to 9 foot diver. Next, everyone knows all about these now. This is the Berkeley Fritz side. This is the Fritz side 5. They also have one, I think, that dives 7 and maybe one that dives even 9 foot. And they have a bigger version, the big frit side. This is one bait that's plastic that they did a good job of giving it the same kind of action that a balsa bait would have. This one doesn't have a rattle in it, but I'm sure they make some that do. It's got a good 2 little lead, like the suspend dots is almost what they look like. If you guys remember those, and suspend strips. Well, these 2 little lead dots are made into the bait, and it gives it a good balance and a really good action. So the Berkley Frit Side 5 or any of the Frit Sides is another good flat side crankbait. The thing about flat sides to me is because, and I mentioned this earlier, the water getting colder, it will make the bait, you want baits with a lot tighter action. As the water's warmer, you want more of a wobble to the tail of your crankbait. But as it gets colder, the minnows, the shad, the other forages swimming in the water when it's colder, it's swimming slower and the action is a lot tighter. And that's why flat sides, to me, work better in colder water. Now, I can say that this year I did a lot more experimenting with flat sides in the summer because I had watched a video and done some reading where I saw that a lot of guys will go to flat sides in the summer because the fish aren't seeing them as much. They're seeing more of the wide wobble type crankbait. And I did have some success with them in the summer as well. But when it gets to 55 and below, that's really when I start to lean on them. And I'll have them tied on now all the way to next spring. Anytime I fish in December especially. And in the other colder months as well. You know, this next one I'm going to show you, some of these don't have my familiar red hook on the front because I haven't had a chance to, I ordered some new ones and I haven't had the chance to change hooks and stuff on them yet. But this is the Rapala OG Tiny. And this color right here, man, has been so good for me. This is the regular Tiny, and I have to look at my note here because I can't remember. I always think this thing dives 3 to 5 foot, but it's really about a 4-foot diver. On 12-pound line, I'm probably getting 3 to 3.5 out of it. This bait right here, in fact, my last tournament video from the Tar River, every fish I weighed in came on this right here. I've actually bought some of the OG Tiny, the 7-foot depth. Have not used them yet, so I don't know, you know, I'm sure they're going to catch fish just like, you know, the regular Tiny and all these other flat sides because Rapala makes good stuff. But I have not yet actually fished with them, so until I do, you know, I won't say a lot about them. Last baits I'm going to show you. Last 3 years I have really become a fan of the Black Label crankbaits. Everyone knows, I've talked about them several times. Cliffe is the owner of that company, Black Label, and he selects the designs, the colors. He's pretty much the guy that runs everything with those. And this little bait right here, it's not a traditional flat side. You can see it's actually kind of fat, but it has flat sides to it. It's just not the razor thin like a lot of the other ones. It's got a thicker profile, but this is the bacon, and I've caught so many fish the last 2 or 3 years on this bait. Honestly, the action is really subtle. It's not like a square bill. It's not like a, you know, I think the lip has something to do with that too. But this bait has been really, really good to me. This color has been good to me. And it's something now, I pretty much have this bait tied on year round. I never take it off. I've had warm water, I've caught fish with it around grass, wood, rock. It doesn't matter. I have caught fish with this in every situation I've used it in. Now, it doesn't, you know, have the same as tight a wiggle, but I still consider it a flat side because you can see clearly it does have flat sides. It's a thicker bait. It's more along the lines of the Little John. If you look at a Little John and you look at this, It's even a little bit wider than Little John. But this has been just, you know how you have baits you never take off? This is one of them for me, is that bacon. Now here's two other Black Label baits that are really, really good in cold water. This is called a little Cliffe. This is an awesome little bait. Now this thing can be difficult to cast on a bait caster if there's any kind of wind. But if you fish a flat side at all, you know wind is not your friend when you're throwing a flat side crankbait. It can make for a miserable day. And if this is what's getting you the bites and you got to throw it, you know, a lot of people will throw this, I've learned, on a spinning rod. I don't like fishing a crankbait on a spinning rod, so I just adjust my reel, use 10 to 12 pound line, and if I have to make short casts at targets, I make short casts, but I just don't like fishing a crankbait on a spinning rod. A lot of people do the same thing with a shad wrap. This is a good little bait in cold water, and it's not what you would call a regular or fit the mold of a most standard flat sides. It's a little bit more rounded, but in cold water, it's a good bait and it gets bites. The last one is also a Black Label, and this is another good bait. One more note on the Cliffe. It's about believe it or not, on 10 pound line, you can get this thing down to 8 foot. I use 12 for just about everything I crank, and I'm probably getting it down to about 6.5, maybe 7. But the last one is the Black Label Hickster. This is another good flat side. 4 to 5 foot on 12 pound line. I'm gonna say probably closer to 4. I know I lose a little bit of depth when I'm fishing with 12 pound line, but I've got so much confidence. And so one thing about cranking, and this is again just what I've learned, because I've probably caught more fish on a crankbait than anything else I've ever fished, is you get a feel when you start fishing. You get the right rod, get used to the same line diameter, and get used to the same gear ratio, and you get a feel with a crankbait like a guy that fishes a jig fisherman, a guy that fishes a glide bait. They just know when the stuff that they're using, and they got the right rod, the right line, the right reel, and the right bait. It's almost like that you get in a groove with it. You know when the bait's running like it should, and you know when you need to speed up, slow down. That's the thing about cranking, is you've got to experiment with different things until you get it to where it fits the way you fish. And you can do that. You pretty much need to try and do that with every style or category of bait that you've got the most confidence in. You got to put the time in with it. And I've put tons of time in with cranking. And some people, you know, my boat's full of crankbaits. Some guys don't like crankbaits at all because treble hooks and losing fish. And I just love fishing with them. I love the bite. I love making them react to something like this that they probably don't want to bite all the time, but you can provoke them into striking it. And that's one of the challenges and things I love about crankbait fishing. So month of December, this is what I'm throwing. Not saying that I won't go in another direction if what I'm used to doing doesn't work. But for the most part, all this stuff will be tied on and I'll be throwing it in the month of December. Water's getting colder. Like I said, we had a cold snap here that's lasted about 4 or 5 days. And I know I got a tournament next weekend. I know the water temperature on the river is going to be low 50s to high 40s, I bet. I'll be surprised if it isn't that cold. So crank slow, use slower retrieve reels, which is what I do year round when I crank anyway. And you can still catch fish on jerkbait, crankbait, jig. And don't forget, and I don't have one out, and I probably should, but it's still not something I'm throwing a lot yet, and that's a silver buddy. I'm not you know, to the point yet where I think the water is that cold and I need to get to throwing one of them, but it won't be long. So anyway, I hope this helps. Hope it helps you catch some more fish. If you're still out there fishing and if you're not in the woods, I appreciate everybody watching, and I will see you guys on the next video. Stay safe, stay warm, and I hope you catch some. Thanks again.